The release of the Necropolis League was met by a wave of criticism from users on Reddit and content creators on YouTube. Some even call it the worst received leak in the game's history. Subsequently, GGG released a patch with tons of buff and quality of life improvements to the league mechanic, and everyone seemed pleased with the changes and decided to put down their pitchforks. But what does all this mean to the casual players who are still going through the campaign or working on their Atlas completion like myself? Is life in the Necropolis fun and rewarding when you're just getting started? To answer those questions, I would like to share my experience with the Necropolis League with you in this video. We will start at the very beginning and talk about the campaign experience with the new league mechanic. As this is the 4th character that I've started in PoE, I was rushing through the campaign and trying to get it done and over with as quickly as possible. Also, because I'm playing a softcore trade character, I did not bother with messing with the Lantern of Arimo because they would just slow me down too much. If I have to die because of that, well, so be it. Despite being rather experienced at the game and not completely neglecting my defenses, I did experience quite a few surprise deaths that made me go, what the fuck just happened? At the end of the campaign, my death count was quite a bit higher than in my past playthroughs. It was a bit annoying, but nothing that my character cannot handle. Nonetheless, I can imagine it being extremely frustrating for a hardcore player. And what is my reward for dealing with the added difficulty, you might ask? Well, I got a mob full of stinking corpses that Arimo would not stop reminding me to go deal with.
We are almost full of exile. Might want to make use of our stored corpses. They're starting to smell.
And if Arimo tells you that the pay is good for being a gravedigger, like what he told me, he's completely lying. After carefully selecting and burying 30 corpses, all I got was a piece of gear that was barely an upgrade from what I picked up from the ground. That is, if I was lucky. And one craft usually cost me all the best corpses that I've collected over 5 to 7 hours of playtime, so there's that. All this might sound really bad, but it is actually not that big of a deal. Yes, I died a lot more than usual for next to zero reward, but going through the campaign is just a rite of passage to get to the fun part anyway, so for me, it is anything goes. While the league mechanic is neither fun nor rewarding during the campaign, it is not much worse than doing the campaign with nothing new at all. I finished the campaign at around 15 hours of playtime, which I think is pretty long. Usually it should take around 10 hours or less. Part of it could be due to the high death counts and having to do the walk of shame, and I might be playing slower and more cautiously because of the increased difficulties as well. Now that I have crawled my way out of the campaign, I can finally start doing maps and progressing my Atlas. At this point, I think it is also worth mentioning that finishing the campaign netted me a total of 8 raw chaos orbs. I feel that this is slightly more than what I would usually get from other leagues, but I haven't really been paying attention or tracking. If this is indeed more than usual, I believe the occasional quantity and rarity buff from the league mechanic might have something to do with it. I might have even gotten a Chaos Orb conversion buff without even being aware of it. So don't be like me and always check your lantern when you are transitioning into a new zone. Anyway, I swapped to my proper league start build, bought a few gear upgrades with the extra cash that I've gotten, and started working on maps. This is when I started to take the Lantern of Arimo seriously and actually spend the effort to assign Haunted modifiers and Devotion buff to the right mobs because I don't want to risk breaking my maps or losing progress to deaths. It was a bit tedious at the beginning because nobody likes reading, but after doing it for a while, I realized that it doesn't really take up that much of time. Most of the time, Haunted modifiers can be neutralized by assigning them to mobs that will not benefit from that modifier or to squishy mobs that will die in one hit. Because of that, I'm in yellow maps now, and I haven't been having too much trouble with having the new league mechanic forced onto my maps. On the reward side of things, the occasional currency conversion, quantity and rarity increase, and experience buff is nice, but it is nothing to write home about. And grave crafting before the patch is still quite useless, so the corpses that I get mean next to nothing to me. I also do not see a reason to engage with the all flames mechanic just yet, so I've left them mostly untouched until maybe when I get a Divine Orb devotion to show up. So, if you ask me if I want the Necropolis League mechanic to be in my maps all the time, my answer would be no. I would rather just finish my Atlas progression as quickly as possible, and if the new league mechanic is rewarding enough, then maybe I will get into it after speccing for it in my Atlas passive tree. The other problem that I have with the Necropolis League mechanic is that it is just not very fun. Unlike almost all other league mechanics, it doesn't change the content in the maps all that much, it just makes them stronger or drops different loot. Sure, you can change out the mobs using all flames, but it still doesn't change the gameplay. My favorite league mechanic in the game is Blight, which completely changes the encounter into a tower defense mode. So in comparison, the Necropolis mechanic is just quite boring. At this point, I'm trying very hard to think of something good to say about the new league mechanic. Well, technically it is now easier to craft a perfect item using Gravecraft if you know what you are doing, and especially after the buff it got from the patch. There might be a lot of demand for corpses after this, which in turn makes farming them more lucrative. If the reward is good enough, I can maybe see myself giving it a try and being fully invested in it. This might be one of those things that gets a lot better when you are fully committed or when it is combined with other farming methods that you can do in maps. I will be sure to post an update if that's the case. On even more positive notes, I have been enjoying the quality of life changes quite a lot in this league. My favorite so far has been the automation and call to arms support gems. Initially, I was quite skeptical about them because I did not see any problem with binding skills to the left click, and there is no downside of costing more mana and a longer cooldown. But now, I can actually get 2 skills to cast automatically instead of 1, because I can have an instant skill and a warcry. Some people complain that it gets really annoying in hideouts to have the skills and warcry go off every few seconds. Personally, I just turn them off if I need to sit in my hideout for an extended period of time, so it is really not that big of a problem. That's all I wanted to say about my experience with the Necropolis League so far. While my first impression of the league hasn't been that great, it is not as bad as many people make it sound. PoE itself is still a great game, and besides the league mechanic, there are tons of other interesting new changes that are making the game fresh in this league. Also, my thoughts about the new league mechanic might still change once I'm done with my Atlas progression and able to fully engage with it. If you are interested in hearing my updated experience in the future, please do subscribe to the channel. I'm also curious about what are your thoughts on the Necropolis League. Leave them in the comments and I will be sure to read and respond to every single one of them. If you enjoyed the video, a like would be very much appreciated. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.